What was craziest food you had in Argentina?
Craziest food that's an animal. It was called peludo. It was like an armadillo. It was a big hairy armadillo. But they served it cold in what's called an escabeche in like vinegar and stuff. Craziest part of the cow was called tripa gorda, and it's anus. It wasn't too terrible. When they told me what it was, I decided not to tell my companion what it was until later. But yeah, a little fatty.
What was one of the most crazy or dangerous experiences you had?
Probably the second time I got robbed. I was on a colectivo, a bus, and a gentleman asked me for a coin. I told him I didn't have any coins, but I gave him one of those little pass-along cards that has Jesus on it. And he said, "Oh, thank you." And then he leaned over and said, "Hey, I'm not joking. Like, give me your money or I'm going to kill you." And I said, "I don't know." Like, I just kind of turned around, pretended like I didn't hear it, and he started whispering to me a bunch of profanities. And then told me that he was going to get off the bus and shoot me. And I, probably shouldn't have done this, but I reasoned with him and said, if you were asking me for a coin because you don't have money, like, how do you have money for a gun and bullets? And made him really mad. It was a holiday, so nobody else was on the bus, and he was just screaming at me. And then my companion turned around because he wanted to see what was going on. And I just told him in English, like, just turn back around. Don't look at this guy. And he asked for my belt, my shoes, and a lot of other things. But yeah, I mean that I never really there's danger, but you just got to be attentive.
What's one of the most important spiritual lessons or life lessons you learned on your mission?
I learned more so than that the gospel speaks every language. That the gospel speaks every language. I found out that it really speaks to every kind of person in all kinds of different walks of life, that it really is for everyone. And if it seems like people are kind of uniform in the church, it's just because the blessings are uniform for everyone. Everybody gets the blessings, temporal blessings and spiritual blessings from being a member of the church. And maybe second or third generation don't really know that those blessings come to them just because of a tradition of serving God and of being the best person you can be. But even people who are in really humble circumstances, you can have the vision for them and their children to have all the blessings, maybe not all the temporal blessings that you and your family have, but almost everything and definitely everything they need for not just a good life, but an amazing life.
Awesome. What's one of the greatest skills you gained?
Besides really mastering Spanish and loving Spanish, I think being able to relate to people, not just talk to them, but talk with them and converse and really get to know someone and communicate on a level that's a lot higher than talking about the weather or sports or trying to find common ground, but really communicating my own hopes, desires, fears, a lot of other things, emotions, things that you maybe wouldn't talk about, and listening to theirs and understanding them, which has helped me in my relationships with my family and with friends and romantic relationships as I come back from the mission.
What was one of the most spiritual experiences you had?
So about 6 months into my mission, I baptized almost every week in Salt Lake, and they've just made it kind of a point in a place like that you baptize every week. And obviously it's not about the numbers, but in a place where you can baptize a ton, you kind of do it for the numbers as well, because you should. I mean, if you can harvest that much, then you should kind of glorify God. As far as Argentina goes, though, the church was a little bit newer and it's different in Latin America. I hadn't baptized anybody up to the 6 month part of my mission. And I remember just an awful day where we almost had nobody to teach. And at the very end of the day, we went and you clap in Argentina to get people to come to the door, and the house looked almost abandoned. And a lady came out who was obviously an immigrant. She was from Bolivia. It didn't talk like an Argentine or look like one. And we talked to her, and I just very almost desperately said, "Hey, we have a message about Jesus Christ. Please let us in so we can talk to you about it because it will change your life." And she told us yes. She went to church a little while after that lesson and really enjoyed it. And I got transferred. And as I was getting transferred, she told me that she had actually just left Bolivia. Her husband had been murdered by some drug cartel kind of people. He'd been involved in some shady business, and so she escaped with her family to Argentina to find the only other family she had, I think, was her mother. And she told me that it really, really made the difference in her life. And I might not have be able to even fill up a page with the amount of people that I helped get baptized, but I know all their names and all their stories, and I know Sandra very well because my companion and I were willing to, first of all, knock on or clap at a house that looked like it was abandoned, and also teach this woman in her patio because there were no men inside. We couldn't go inside, and also kind of go out our way to help her to get to church. And it made the difference for her and her family, realizing that maybe if I had been a little bit less faithful, another missionary would have been given that opportunity. But kind of God's plan definitely does exist and is known to the faithful missionary, to someone who will really try to be a part of it.
Cool. What was craziest weather you experienced?
So when I lived in La Pampa, I lived there for almost a year. My mission just on and off, 6 months in a city called General Pico and 6 months in a city called Santa Rosa. It would get in this weird pattern for the weeks in the summer where it would be really just blazing hot at the beginning of the week, and it'd get really humid in the middle of the week, and then by like Saturday, Sunday, it would just start pouring rain, and that was really frustrating in some parts because almost every Sunday it rained, and Argentines are of the urban legend that rain will make them melt or give them cancer or something like that, and they won't go out in the rain. So even some longtime members would miss church because it was raining. But that definitely, just the fact that it would happen, it seemed, every Saturday and Sunday. I think sometimes I would pray and say, I know this might not be like the most righteous desire and it won't help people progress, but can it please not rain on Saturday and Sunday? So we can give people to baptisms or to church this weekend, and it was just something you had to learn to deal with.
Let's see. What's the best piece of mission trip advice you could give?
If I guess it's kind of what I said a little bit earlier. Find out why you have a desire to serve. And understand your calling comes from you having a desire to serve. You can have a calling and go on a mission, and if you still don't really want to be there, you won't discover a lot of your purpose as a missionary until you're willing to do that. And that's especially important for elders, like I said, because it's an obligation for us, because God needs priesthood holders and He needs heads of household, and He needs all of the men in His church that are willing to obey any measure of the commandments to do this. But at the same time, you have to have that internal desire and do it for some kind of something inside you. Of course, the Spirit will help you find that, and Revelation's good for that. But yeah.
What's the thing you admire most about the people?
They're funny. They're very funny. And they've been through a lot of difficulties in the last 50 years as far as their government goes. Been in like kind of a police state or anything like that, but they're always finding things to laugh about. And it's kind of some people get really upset about it, that they're always making fun of this and that. But the fact that they can laugh at themselves and laugh at everything around them doesn't mean that they don't think anything's sacred. It definitely just means that they have found a really great way to deal with having a difficult existence and difficult survival as families, and it's definitely something that keeps them together and endears me to them, definitely.
Funniest language mistake.
So there's a word for bird, pájaro, that a lot of new missionaries get confused with. And I remember one time I was on exchanges with a very new missionary. He told me there were pajeros in the trees. And pajero is it really means someone who works with hay, but is a very vulgar representation of something else. So I tried to correct him, and he told me, no, I'm pretty sure it's pajero. And I told him, well, why don't you ask a member? He did, and they was fairly embarrassed when they laughed and told him not to say that. Also, the word for grab in a lot of Latin America is coger, but that's a really, really vulgar word in Argentina. It's taboo. You wouldn't hear it. I wouldn't hear it on TV even. If Argentine TV had, the censorship that America has, you would probably hear it on their TV. But
hardest experience you had, or one of the hardest?
I lived in a house with 3 missionaries, one that was a very good friend of mine and 2 others that were not so much good friends of mine, and just seemed like there was always conflict in the house. And one of the hardest experiences I ever had was just praying to love one missionary in particular who really had it out for me. I don't know what it was, if it was jealousy or probably a lot of things that I was doing or other things, and I just had to pray for Heavenly Father to make me love Him, even if He drove me that insane, and did that. And it was a really humbling experience, because it didn't just take one prayer one day. It took a really long time, and believing that I could if I exercised enough faith and patience.
And then last question would be just, if you had best piece of advice you could give for someone just coming home from the mission, for a return missionary? Just
coming home from their mission? Maintain... there's a certain amount that you want to keep for your mission. There's a certain amount that you have to change because you're back in the world. The things that you definitely don't want to lose are your excitedness about the scriptures. You have a lot of other things you could be doing, and your love for serving. Definitely try to serve in any moment you can in the church, regardless of how annoying that is for people. In a place where there's a lot of return missionaries who probably want to do the same thing, because you should always have a desire to serve after, whether it's just missionary work or your home teaching or calling in church or do anything, do it with the same kind of zeal you did on your mission.